Welcome back to another episode of The Challenge Insiders here on Reality Pop. We are back to talk about The Challenge Season 37 finale and also All Stars Episode 6, not to be forgotten here. We get 2 episodes once more, which has been great to cover. And boy, oh boy, what a final to talk about. But let me first introduce you to my co-hosts who probably don't need any introductions, but we will go down there again and we will ask Drew from the Angel Cake channel. Drew, how are you doing? How does it feel to finally get to the end of this marathon of a season that is, I think it's been almost like 4.5 months of us reviewing it at this stage?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to get to the end. It's sad to see the ending because that means that there's one less thing that we're going to be covering or one less week we're going to be doing anything together. But just let everybody know, I found out what Devin's flawless plan is, and I have it up here for you guys if you really want to like cheat off of it, make your own flawless plan. I mean,
can you go through that? I can't fully see it. Can you explain? Please.
Yeah, it's Devin's flawless plan. It's 3 steps. It's work with Big Brother, guilt trip your friends, and lose the finals. And that is what flawless is.
Hey, I will say the guilt trip your friends got him 50K, and that's not too bad of a strategy. If you're not going to go in there and win the final, then at least get something from it. Chantel, how are you doing? And what was your views of this exciting finale that we saw here? And potentially some history in the making here with CT, I guess, winning his 5th challenge championship.
I just had to remind each other that I have CT on my team.
All right, Drew, podcast over.
You had Nelly on your team. I don't know if Nelly crossed the finish line, but I do know that CT did. So I'm pretty happy with how things went down. I have a lot of things to say about, the structure of the final. Like there's some things I loved about it, some things that I was like, that could be tweaked and fixed. But overall, I was on the edge of my seat. I wasn't 100% sure who was going to win in the end, which, I always like, not knowing definitively who's going to be winning the game. And I'm happy that it's finally coming to a conclusion. It's been a long time coming. So I'm happy that it will only have to watch All Stars, which is just a little bit more relaxed. So I'm happy to talk about it with you guys tonight because I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly here tonight, and it's great to have everybody here in the live again as well. Sam, welcome to the stream. Rodrigo, struggling at art, thank you for those early comments. The Hangout Room asking me, what time do we normally stream? It is on the East Coast time, Eastern Standard Time for, I believe, New York, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday. There will be a slight adjustment to the schedule, which I'll try and put this up as a notification to the whole community as well, just in case anybody misses this first part, because we do get a lot of people that drop in later during the stream sometimes. But we will be on at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week when we're doing it, because I will be podcasting with you guys on Christmas Day. I've actually got some people coming over, so I need to move things over. One of the cons about being in New Zealand is I'm somewhere in the future, but we will make it work. So 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, lock that in, guys. We will be here to talk about the next episode of the Challenge All-Stars, and most likely the reunion show as well. I believe we will have a reunion show coming up next week as well, right, guys?
Yes, and it actually looks kind of interesting. I don't know if they just showed all the good bits, but I've been thinking of trying to do some sort of drinking game or something to be able to watch it, like how many times people get to a fight with each other or whatever. You have to take a shot. So I've been thinking about trying to figure out a way to make it a little bit more interesting to cover it, but I will be watching it because it does seem like it has a little bit of tea going down.
Do we think that CT
2 hours or 2 parts?
2 parts.
Oh,
it's
wow.
A 2-part final.
They're really dragging this out. They're milking it.
Come on. Okay, if it's a 2-part final, then I'm not going to cover the reunion. I'm not going to cover it next week, and I'll just do both the week after. That's too annoying.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a sound way to look at it. And for me, what's really funny is seeing CT saying, he would take, or someone asking the question, will he box? Do we think Fessy is bringing up shade again here at the end? Is it going to be a Fessy CT controversy coming into next week? And how hard is Fessy playing to pair up with CT so he can get a championship? Because CT's given 2 Big Brother players a championship now. Will he be able to give a 3rd player here a championship? And boy, oh boy, do I wish that CT does not stand for it and tells the production team to shove it if they try and put those 2 together.
I, for whatever reason though, I wouldn't be surprised if CT would be okay with it, because if he wants to win and then he'd have protection of the whole Big Brother alliance, he would be able to potentially get to the end, and people would be scared of going against that team in any sort of elimination type situation. So it's not the worst for him for them to be paired up against each other. It's better for him to be with him than against him moving forward.
True.
So as much as I would loathe Fessy getting a championship, I could see CT being tempted by the money and going with it.
Oh. If those 2 pair together, it's inevitable.
I don't see it happening. It won't happen. It won't happen. They won't put those 2 gargantuan men together and then face off against who? Devin, and I don't even know who is his
Josh. Oh no, he's his rival. Yeah, who's Devin's rival? Yeah, Devin's friends now with everyone. I feel like.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't think there's any shade.
But there's nobody that they would want to pair up with them. So it's like a hall brawl going up against CT. And it's like in Free Agents when they had that T-Bone elimination or that T-Bone daily challenge, and Zach and CT were on the team together. Nobody wanted to go near them during going into the ditches because they would destroy everybody who was down there. So it's like they wouldn't overpower their team with Fessy and CT together, because who would go up against them? Who would try to trip them up? That's the thing.
Well, what if they did bring the Joss back in? He could probably handle it. Rogan.
It would be funny if they those daily challenges from Double Agents where they had to hold each other over the cliff, and it was just Fessy looking into CT's eyes as they were just holding it down.
Or the challenge when they had to put the other person upside down, and so their crotch and their legs are wrapped around their neck, and they had to run with them. That would be
awesome.
Amazing.
By the way, while we're on the subject of Fessy, this came to mind when I was watching the final. I was very surprised not to see an eating challenge in the final, and we always see an eating challenge. Do we think Fessy had that written into his clause this season, coming back after he did so terrible last season? Because clearly production loves him. They want to see him back. Why did we not have an eating challenge here? Because I feel like it would have definitely, if they wanted to help Fessy in a final, this would be the way to go. And normally I'm not the one with the tinfoil hat on, but I thought I'd throw it out there. Thought bubble.
That didn't even cross my mind, but maybe. I was surprised. I mean, they don't do an eating challenge on every single final, but I was surprised that they didn't torture them a little bit more. The fact that they didn't have to stand on a tin can and splash their face with water and switch up sleeping, or sleep on something awkward and uncomfortable, that surprised me as well. So as much as the beginning of the final was hard, I don't think it was one of the hardest finals that we've ever seen. I thought it was pretty basic, to be fair.
Just like the main season, the team format watered everything down. And that's basically how it was, that it was just they all just wanted to do team puzzles, and there was no time points or anything. So the having an eating competition really didn't do much, because there was 2 pivotal points, and that was what team you're going to get distributed on, or what team you're going to pick, and then the elimination. And then that's it. Those were the 2 main points. Everything else was kind of filler in a way, because there was no time. There was nothing that transpired in the middle of it to figure out what to do next in the finals. So having an eating portion wouldn't have changed much of anything besides people just eating and barfing stuff up, and then CT would just destroy them again.
Well, unless though, when the new like the new duos were created, that's when you had maybe the eating things happen, and you'd see like CT be like, you're with me now, Casey, like, come on, eat, like, you know what I mean, like getting her to eat it or something like that. Because I did find that it a little bit unfair that Casey was allowed to be on the losing team. She was going against her girlfriend to stay in the game. Nani fully let her win to continue.
I don't agree.
She gets to choose her favorite partner,
50-50.
like the best partner, after being the best of the losers, and then just goes to just like run to the end and win. I just feel like there should have been another checkpoint or something else just to equalize it a little bit, especially if she wasn't going to have to work harder to get CT as a partner.
So I don't agree that Nani gave Casey the win. I think Casey would have won every single day of the week, but Casey kind of gave her a win in that second round and didn't even fight.
To make it
and
not
that
like
was
a blowout, but like,
it looked boring to watch.
You can tell by Nani, she's like, just try a little bit, Casey. Like, just try. Like, she wasn't. Neither of them were giving it their all.
No,
Regardless of whether Casey would have won for sure or not, she did make sure that Casey wasn't super sore, wasn't super bruised up, like didn't exert that much energy to, you know what I mean, moving forward. Like, it was an easy win for Casey. And if it was against anybody else, Casey would have fought harder, and I felt maybe deserved that win a little bit more. Like, Kyle deserved that win.
Oh yeah, let's get into this, because this is one of the ugly, the bad, and I've got some opinions about this as well. So Casey sucked at the finale. Most of it, she was at the bottom, at the back. She didn't even do good in the individual part of it. Like, she was not doing well. So for her to get to the end, and even Kyle to a certain degree here as well, like, I feel like probably in my mind, and oh man, I know there's not a lot of love for this person here on this panel, but I have to be fair. Tori got burned by this because she was by far the best girl in the finale.
I agree.
Yeah, by far. Like, she deserved to have a choice. So in my opinion, how you fix this whole thing is you say, let's look at time-wise who had the best time through the first checkpoints, and those two people get to choose who they want to run with, and they can choose to run together if they want to. Give power to the people who are performing well. This kind of reminded me,
just being
and
like,
we will be talking about
takes me, that sucked.
Yeah, like, and we will talk about this when we talk about Survivor next week as well. But you know, how can you reward someone for losing and give them the power for losing, and everything that, you know, if they want to be seen as an Olympic sport or they want to have this competitive show, you should be promoting someone for doing well and performing well within the finale. Casey was gifted this final, in my opinion. Like, in my mind, it was always inevitable at some stage. Casey had a good chance at winning one of these shows. Did I want to see her win this way? Definitely not. Like, I feel like it's a hollow win personally.
Yeah. And this is what my whole Friday Tiny Table Talk, my first 7 minutes of this video, was me talking about the format. Like, we can't take away the win that Casey got because she got it fair and square. I mean, the format was the format, and she played within the rules of the format. But this finals was the advantage was losing. If you lost and then won this elimination, you got all the power. Whereas the purple team won 80% of the time because 80% of the finals was in teams. If you lost 80% of the time and then you just had to stand there. You had no, my whole thing is, if in a perfect world, this finals would have been run like free agents. Everybody would pair up with everybody, do some solo rounds. And then if you want to pair them up later to be their final pairings, then you can do it off of a point or a time-based system. If we keep everything held constant and they still want to do the team format because of the whole, like, I don't know, it's like a thing where it goes back and forth. Race car. It's like race car where it was pairs.
Oh,
palindrome.
Palindrome.
Yeah. If you want it to stay that way, what they should have done was had more solo portions at the beginning, more solo checkpoints at the beginning where they actually timed or had points. And then once they were in teams, you had them do something where they were individually, but also playing as a team. So if within a checkpoint, you have to help move this missile, but once you take that missile where it needs to be, there's something else you have to do there. There's like 4 puzzles and you have to do a puzzle or a math problem. And whoever gets it first within the team, you're still working as a team, but as solo wise. So when we get to that point where there's eliminations or purges or whatever. You can purge whoever has the slowest time or has the lowest amount of points. Those two people are purged out. And then whoever has the top points gets to choose what they want to do, who they want to be paired up with. Do they want to be paired up with the top scoring or top scorer of the women's or the opposite gender or whatever? Then they can make that decision together. But to have the purple team so far ahead, or someone like Tori, who did great in the solo portion and then got to pick her team and then win the most out of everybody, not have agency or a choice in this is just crazy. And I get it. It's the format of the season. They're trying to keep with the format of the season. But also the other hand was the winning team was the agency and they held all the power.
And they weren't allowed to be touched.
Yeah, except now that's not the case. Instead, it's whoever lost gets all the power to choose who they want to be. It doesn't make any sense. When I got really heated in my video, and I feel like I've been able to like simmer down a little bit. And you guys said a lot of the same stuff, but yeah, I don't want to get too heated.
So
ridiculous.
So frustrating watching that, and I don't know if it translates over to the general viewer that just casually watches the show and if they feel the same way about it or not. But to me, it really is frustrating as someone who analyzes the game, wants to see the best player win, wants to see great strategy, wants this show to be a top tier show, which it will be there. It'll be there next year again. A lot of this blowback that we could have had in this finale probably is cushioned by the fact that we get CT winning his 5th season. And a lot of people are big CT fans. Now, Chantel, there's been a lot of discussion in recent times that if CT does not play in the real show and the main challenge, that a lot of viewers, OG viewers, will turn away from the show. CT has gone and spoken in an interview after with, I think it was People Magazine. I've read an interview where he said that he feels like it's that time again for him to take a break. Like he feels like, it's hard to say no when TJ calls, but he's in that portion now where he kind of feels like his son's getting older. He wants to spend more time with him. If CT walks away today and calls it a day for now and he doesn't come back for a couple of years, where does he sit in the conversation now when it comes to all-time greats for challengers out there now that he's had his 5th win?
I mean, I think that CT will always, he's had such a growth on the season, like on the series itself. Like he started with Real World Paris, the kid with the chip on his shoulder from Boston, and then he's moved through with like being, disqualified for fighting all the time. Like, and then he has this amazing love story with DM, and then he comes back and he's out of shape and he's not doing that well, but he's still able to do well on champs versus stars or pros or both. And then he comes back and he's like, okay, I'm not good. Like we've seen so much of his transformation and his journey that I think that if he came back and he's like 80 years old, like with a cane, people will be like, yes, the greatest of all time is back. I think that they will allow him to come back, especially if he continues performing as well as he's been performing. I think that Bananas is still maybe a little bit above him. I know he's won 2 more seasons than CT has, but I feel like that's more so in the later years for CT. So the newer fans are going to be a little bit more into CT because like they've seen him around a little bit more than Bananas. So I don't think that his legacy is going to be tarnished. I think that he could do whatever he wants and people will be just like drooling if he decides to come back. And I'm not sure though about how the fandom will react like next season. I don't know if the numbers will go down if he doesn't show up. I can't tell yet because they've been saying like the reason why they're bringing in all these new international players and big brothers because they're trying to really build up the fandom. So I just don't know how much that has actually been working. I can't tell. I'll still watch, but I'm a longtime fan. I don't know about the new fans. I don't know. But I did want to say something about the final is I wouldn't have mind this if it was known to everybody what would have happened if they came in last. They would have to go up in a final battle and then they got to choose their partner. Then maybe you would see some strategy with people being like, oh, well, I don't want anybody from the orange cell to be deciding to go with me and potentially losing my final. Maybe we should decide to go against each other. CT might be like, hey, man, I'd rather choose to be running with, say, Tori or Casey than like have maybe Nani come and choose me to play at the rest of the final. So I wish that they just give them all the information and let them make their own decisions and then watch it play out instead of like, hey, haha, you suck, but you lose out even though you're doing the best. Anyways,
they're looking for shock factor. They're looking at how can we keep the players on their toes, not give them all the information and see how they react, because in their mind that makes for good TV. And I don't disagree necessarily with that. The problem for me is the whole mechanic, what the shock is about. It really favors the underperforming group there at that specific point. And like you said, no one knew, but I think an interesting question would have been, Drew, like, would anybody have sacrificed? I mean, I know CT is very confident in his own ability, but he's someone who doesn't want to go into eliminations if he doesn't have to. And you don't know what you're going to go up against, someone in that spot. You don't know that it's going to be something physical. It could be a puzzle. There could be certain things that Devin is as capable as CT at puzzles and other things that CT could absolutely beat him in. But clearly CT has some respect for Devin's ability when it comes to doing puzzles. So would we have seen a different result if they knew that this was going to be the case? What do you think, Drew? How do we fix this? And I hear what Chantal is saying, but I don't know. I don't know if it would have worked out any differently.
I don't think it would have, because I don't think Tori wants to go into an elimination, especially against the rookie who has won 4 eliminations, despite the competition. People have talked about Emmy's competition in those 4 eliminations. At the end of the day, she's won 4 eliminations and she's done pretty well on the season. So Tori wouldn't want that to happen. But also, if that was the case and he said it to everybody, we could still have the final be going on today. Like, everybody's just camping out, not carrying that missile very far or dragging it. They're just like, oh, I want to lose. I don't want to do this. Like, everybody's just not even pushing the gyro balls. They're like, you go. No, you go. You like.
Very true. So on the subject of Banana, since you brought him up, Chantal, on his podcast, he has been going on and on about how he believes he could replicate anyone's game that are currently playing. He could replicate any of the other legends' game. The one person's game he can't replicate, he reckons, is CT, and he is calling CT the GOAT and has been doing so in his last couple of podcasts. Is this Bananas playing 4D chess and trying to minimize a target on his back if they were ever to go back there and play the game again? Because we know that Bananas is not the greatest at giving other people credit, right?
I think that he wants to push a little bit of the target off of his back. I mean, like, I suck. Look at CT. He won 2 back-to-back. He's won the most money out of any challenger that's ever played this game before. More than Ashley, more than me. I think he just wants to deflect, so that if he did come back, he's not as glaringly obvious of a target, even though he's extremely dangerous. And I do think that Bananas is capable of replicating most people's games, especially the Big Brother games. Like, they're just not that advanced. Like, this is pretty basic strategy, and getting to the end by numbers, it's pretty easy. So yeah, I think that he's has an ulterior motive, though.
Now, Drew, you're a bit of a statistician here and knows the history of the show better than most. I believe, and I could be wrong, as a newer school fan, I've watched most of these earlier seasons once. Bananas and CT are both 1-1 in a final, going up against each other head to head. Do we deserve to see a third one to set the record straight? If those two were ever to play in a final again, who would beat the other one outright? Because both are really good at finals.
It would be difficult. I mean, it would be difficult to say, because it depends on what final, what's in the final, who else is in the final, as well as their sabotages or anything like that. I mean, CT is, we talk about how Bananas and CT are really great competitors and they have found success on the challenge, but both have taken very different paths. Like both Bananas and CT weren't very well liked in their earlier renditions of their other teams and everything. I mean, but Bananas has had to do it with social skills, with being jokey and everything. CT has been an intimidating figure for most of his challenge career. I don't think he saw an elimination for well, he did see it in Inferno, but he went into the Inferno to take out Shane because his friend was in there. But nobody was wanting to go against CT. Nobody wants to throw him in. And when he's on a team, everybody looks at him as a very big asset. And now that he's in what seems to be even better shape than he was back in Rivals 2, I mean, it's going to be difficult to take him out. But I think what it comes down to is if it's going to be a puzzle heavy final like this one, I would have to give it to CT because Bananas isn't puzzles. Like he has his luck and he has this way of getting puzzles when he needs to or in a tight spot. But on a normal basis, he is not known for his puzzle skills. So if it came down to CT and Bananas in a final where it's mainly running and puzzles, I would want to lean towards CT. But things have happened where free agents, the final elimination was puzzle pyramid and it was CT versus Bananas. And somehow Bananas just absolutely won. And it was rather impressive.
There was a time when CT didn't have confidence in puzzles. I remember when he was like, oh, puzzle. I think he's actually practiced, which is what Nelson should be doing. Kyle should be doing. It seems like Tori has been doing this. She was better at puzzles this final from her previous showings. But like the puzzle that with the missiles with the three squares, like that's a very common puzzle. So if you just started doing puzzles, you would have seen that solution at least similarly at some point in your life. And so the fact that,
by the way, do you know how he got that? Do you know how he got it that fast? Just looking at some of the interviews afterwards, it's a puzzle he played with his son. So he's I played that one with my son. You know, so it's like a kid's puzzle that they're using in a final, and none of these adults can figure out a kid's puzzle. Nelson's thinking that, you know, he needs to put a triangle down, and he was completely lost in the sauce, which was one of the funniest moments for me in the final.
But if he had done that, if they actually had taken those missiles and started to like at least move them in that direction, where those pieces were placed, it might have like, wait, just move this over and get the other one over here. We'll have a third. You know what I mean? They might have seen the three pieces, but the fact that they've never seen that one before, I feel like I did that one in grade school, absolutely, like little toothpicks. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There's always like move two matchsticks and create another square. I've definitely seen that one before. And even the day before I watched that episode, I saw a similar one on Facebook where you had to like move two matchsticks to create three squares. And I was like, okay, I just saw something similar to this yesterday on Facebook. So where are you guys? Like where? I don't know.
So David says CT had kids, then he started doing more puzzles. So there is hope for Kyle because Kyle, you know, obviously a baby on the way now. And he said that he was going to take a break from the show after this, but getting so close yet again, he's becoming the runner-up man now. He's had quite a few runner-up finals. He wants to come back and prove something here. One of the things I do want to say about Kyle, I may have been the only one that found it this way. I found it really endearing. The rivalry, the frenemy thing between him and Nelson, the whole season butting heads, going up against each other. He beats him, but Kyle, you know, he is a jokey guy. He plays it up for the cameras, but he was very humble in defeat. In victory, I should say. You know, saying, hey, I had a weight advantage, diminishing it, make Nelson feel less bad about the fact that he lost that specific challenge. I really, you know, for me, Kyle, I feel like the more I see him play the show, the more I understand him. There's the TV personality, the character, but then I think we saw the real Kyle, who he is as a person outside of the show. There's show some compassion to a competitor who got so close and was so defeated. And I really enjoyed seeing TJ going over there. You know, he jokes around, he laughs, he has his fun with the cast. But, you know, there's a lot of talk sometimes about TJ not enjoying this new cast members as much as the All-Stars, and there's probably some truth to it. But it does show that if he does have respect for you, if he's seen you on the show quite a lot of times, you know, he does care for these people to a certain degree. And he went over there to have a word with Nelson, who was just absolutely deflated. And I feel for him because, like you said, you know, there's certain things he's going to have to work on to come back and win. Otherwise, he's just going to be another Anissa saying, I've never won and I've gotten so close many times. But, you know, you got to work on the things that you're not great at. But overall, great human moment I found by both Kyle and TJ here in the final.
Yeah, I love Kyle. I mean, he does some silly things for TV. He's not necessarily the most reliable in like an alliance, but I think all in all, like he's just somebody that wants to be on this show. He really enjoys whatever the show gives him and brings him. He really likes being there, and I think that he'll always come back. And I did think that it was a really sweet and endearing moment between him and Nelson, like not making Nelson feel bad. And I think it's because Nelson really tried super hard in the beginning, in the middle of the season when they're choosing those cells, the original cells. CT was like, Nelson is a workhorse, and he really is a workhorse. Like, he's really good at running that missile and running those distances, and has that endurance and has that strength, and he works on that part of him, which is amazing. But he needs to be more well-rounded. And I just, like, I wish that he would just take the fact that he could be so good and not be good at two huge elements of the final, and he can almost get there. And like, all he needs to do is get better at puzzles, and he would be competitive in these finals. This is where he always gets like tripped up. He's able to outlast everybody endurance wise and stamina wise. So I just wish that he would just put those pieces together so he can get himself a win. Instead of TJ having to come over and give him a pep talk, like, give yourself a pep talk, learn some damn puzzles, and come back and win. Like, he has it. He has enough. The hardest part would be the endurance part, I would think. Like, just to get familiar with some puzzles, it's not that hard.
I will say that I said it today on Tiny Table Talk to somebody's comment. I was like, you can find tangrams, you can find these matchstick puzzles, you can find math puzzles free online. So please go look at these before you get quarantined or whatever. If
in quarantine, what else are you doing?
Start doing them, because I wholeheartedly think that Nelson could be a cold-blooded killer in the challenge if he would be sharp at puzzles. I mean, he would be incredible. He was able to go up that mountain way faster than CT on that first point to get to the checkpoint 3 puzzle, but it was just the puzzles that kept on lagging him behind. If he could get those puzzles down, I mean, he would be incredible. I mean, he has a phenomenal elimination record. Well, I mean, he's sporting a 3 elimination record losing streak right now. But I mean, he is great at eliminations. He's great not in daily challenges. But if he could have the physical game mixed with the mental game, I don't think anybody could beat him. I mean, he could get better at swimming for sure, but I mean, swimming isn't like a huge part of this without a life vest. I mean, he's pretty good with a life vest, but we don't normally have these long swims without any protection or anything out there in these challenges. So if he could just get better at puzzles, I mean, they could have been flying through this final together.
Yeah.
The only other thing to add on about, sorry,
you go ahead.
I was going to say the only other thing to add about what Nelson could improve was he doesn't stay cool under pressure. He does flail sometimes, and we do see that when he's rolling that metal ball, he doesn't, think about, okay, we've got to make sure that we keep it on. Exactly. He kind of gets all over the place, and so he needs to learn how to also focus his energy, I think. He has a lot of heart. He has a lot of, obviously, as I've said, stamina, endurance, all that, and strength, but he needs focus and he needs puzzles. Sorry, Chris.
I would say that's a situation that's in the moment, though, because after reading the board, that's the final stretch, and the purple team is already taken off. And if you just like wait, you're in that desperation mode at that point. It's not like they were in the middle of something and they had way longer. I mean, he knew that this was the final stretch, and they already bummed the lead, and the trail is this small. So to get even around the purple team,
though.
I'm just saying that I don't think it was as much flaily as it was in the moment, though. I would count that as like a side thing more than.
I want to circle back and touch back on Kyle and Tori here as a team in this final stretch. Apparently, the time difference between CT, Casey, Tori, and Kyle were 10 seconds, or was that close between them at the end. So, hats off to both Kyle and Tori for keeping up and running with both CT and Casey, who you'd think just pound for pound should be the stronger team here, even in the run portion of it. I've said a lot of things earlier in this podcast, and I don't mind being wrong. I love having opinions and being different about it, and I'm wrong more often than right in any case, but I'm sure that's why we've got so many people coming back here to the live stream to hear you guys correct me on my observations. But this one here, I think maybe we were a little bit guilty, a few of us together, but maybe more so me, I'll be honest. Tori, I've underestimated Tori this season big time, and I said, she was at a better peak when she was with Jordan. He was training her like a mad person, but clearly, she did extremely well all the way until the end. I give respect to that. I think she's worked really hard on herself. She has gotten better at other aspects that she hasn't done well in the past, and such as puzzles, which we've just said Nelson should do. So I give respect to that. And then Kyle with Tori doing so well here again in another final. Probably it helps that he's got someone there that is a puzzle master, even though this was more memory than puzzle going in that end section. Where do these two go from here? And, do we think that, they've gotten so close a few times now, Kyle and Tori coming in back next season, if we don't have CT there, and if we don't have someone like Casey even potentially there, how big of a threat are they going to be going into next season? Are people going to say, hey, these were the runner-ups last season, they had an extremely good game, we need to target them? Because Kyle seems to always be underestimated early on and gets thrown into a lot of eliminations, even though he wins.
I think Kyle will still have that same fate of being kind of the person that people throw in all the time. But I do think that he has a great shot at winning if CT isn't there. So I'm not sure what his strategy is going to be. Like, it really will depend on who is going to be on that season, who he can link up with, but he still has a friendship with Devin. If Devin can bring him into that alliance and he can just like swear his allegiance and doesn't screw it up and get people pissed off at him, and he has some protection, he doesn't appear still. I don't think he'll appear to be very, very scary. And I think people would be willing to take their chances against Kyle in a final as opposed to taking their chances with CT in a final. So I think that if he gets an alliance, he can get his way to the end. And I actually think Tori as well is not going to be seen as super scary. I don't think that they're going to be throwing Tori down there every single time. I think she takes people on vacations and trips and whatnot. Like, she definitely, rubs the shoulders of her teammates. And so I can see that her being able to get to the end as well, or close to. So I don't think that they're going to be seen as the same threat level as Casey and CT will moving forward.
I think Kyle needs to work on, I know people call him a snake or whatever, but he needs to work on putting together a game plan for the end game, because this is 3 times that we've seen him make it to the finals, but every time he's played closely with a challenge champion and a challenge legend. Vendettas, he was working very close with Kara, loses to her in the finals. Total Madness, he's working very close with Bananas and loses to him in the finals. He's working very close with CT this whole season, loses to him in the finals. It's like you need to be able to work with all these players, but then know how to get that player out of the game before heading into the finals. Because if Kyle could, I'm not saying I want him to work with Big Brother and do Devin's flawless plan over here, but if he could somehow get to the finals with Josh and Devin and somehow get CT out at some point in the game and work on, I mean, he has a good social game. If he could work to get those players in the final with him, I mean, he's going to win it. I mean, that's the dream duo. That's the dream scenario that you want if you're Kyle. Bring in Josh and Devin to the finals and then just running laps around them, especially if you're doing puzzles with your baby. I mean,
another tough season ahead when he does that, Chantal. Another tough season of watching Josh and Devin go deep in the game. Devin really annoyed me this final, by the way, like just talking himself up every step of the way, and it's just like, man, do you believe the hype that you're trying to sell us? Because I don't believe it. I don't see it.
Flawless game. Flawless game plan.
To your point, Drew, about Kyle just knowing what to cut, his competitive ally in the end. I think that the fact that they didn't know how the final was going to play out also prevented that, because he wanted to run with CT so he can get that win with him. He didn't think that he was going to be against him at some point and be. So, I mean, we were saying before, you want the surprise element for the players, but I like the players being armed with information so they can make educated decisions that I think in the end will allow for really awesome gameplay. I think that if Kyle knew that he wasn't going to be running with CT, he was going to be running against him in the end, he would have made that move to cut CT earlier. He would have gone to Emerald. He wouldn't care about all these things.
But they're friends, Chantal. They're friends. How would he do it? They're friends.
He would have gone to Emerald. He would have taken Emmanuel's spot. No, he'd taken like Josh's spot. He wouldn't have cared. You know what I mean? Like he would
Yeah,
have.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
He definitely would have taken that shot at CT if he knew that he was going to be going against him. So,
the twist 100% helped CT this
Mhm.
season because people thought that they
Yeah.
could work with him towards the end, and then they got absolutely bamboozled again by the producers towards the end of the show. Drew, what do you think? Like, you know, going into next season, when we look at the different formats that's going on, there's a lot of fluidness. What should challengers do differently going into next season? Should they just expect that no matter what we start off as, we might start off as a duo, we might start off as teams, but it is just going to change up, and most likely we at one point will have to run the final against these players and just vote out the biggest threats from the start? How do you plan for the uncontrollable mess that is the production at the moment with the challenge and how they do things? Like, you know, we can train for a lot of things. You can train to physically be better, you can train to do puzzles better, you can train to do certain things, but how do you train for production, basically, is what I'm asking.
Choke
gotta
one,
take your
Survivor
shot.
41.
Take your shots. You got to take your shots. That's the main thing of the strategy is you got to take your shots. Set yourself up. I mean, I'm doing this massive rewatch. I did 1 through 22 so far, and then I'm counting 36 and 37 because I don't want to. I just watched 37. I don't want to go back to 36 and 37. But I'm doing this massive rewatch, and it's like you got to take your shots. You got to come in with a game plan. I just one of my favorite ones, and spoiler alert, one of the higher up ones is Fresh Meat 2 because there were these two warring alliances of this big alliance with Wes and Evelyn, and then you had Kenny and his little bunch there. But every time that Evelyn and Wes had an idea, they would just start chipping away at Kenny's numbers. But then as the game flow went, it's like Landon started moving away from Wes and Evelyn. Then they started to diminish. And it's like, that's how you set yourself up. You try to actually make moves within the game to set yourself up later in the game. It's not this like vet alliance. Done with the vet alliance. Like you can have friends, use your numbers, but start chipping away at the players because you never know. I mean, Devin, who had no plan in going into an elimination and going over to Sapphire to work with CT, seemed to ever want to take a shot at him. So to me, that's dumb. Like that is dumb. I'm cool. I'm just going to I'll run the final with CT on the other team if we're going to stay in teams forever. Okay. Have fun losing then. It's like ridiculous. The strategy was so dumb, and I don't want to hear about friendships anymore.
And it was weird because he knew what he needed to do, and he articulated that earlier in the season when him and Josh were talking. I very much remember that scene where they both agreed the only way they win a final is if CT's not around and they run it against each other at the end. So Devin knows the blueprint. He understands what needs to happen. But, you know, CT, one of the things that Bananas talks about in his podcast, and I've listened to snippets. I'm not a frequent listener, but in this last week, I've specifically when it comes to CT, I thought it'd be interesting to hear his takes on CT. And one of the things that he sort of talks about is that, you know, with CT, he's got this way of making you feel like you're in with him, like you're his friend type of thing. And he's really good at doing the guilt tripping stuff or putting ideas into people's mind where they think it's their idea, but really it's CT. Even though he's a lone wolf and he falls in between alliances, he has enough sway to get you to do things the way that you wanted. I think Leroy spoke about where I think it was in Free Agents where he was seen, I think CT was sent away for fighting and came back, and then Leroy wanted him completely out of the game. He was sent to an hotel or something like that, but he came back with like sweets for Leroy, and then Leroy was like, oh no, I actually do like CT, I don't want him out of the game. And it's the sort of mental stuff that he does outside of the game. And in this specific season, at the end, he does give away $200,000, which is pretty crazy for me because if it was Johnny Bananas, you know, since we're talking about him, he probably would have taken the money again and just went home with it. And a lot of other people probably would have done that. But how does that influence, I guess, the minds of these people now in a season where CT does come back? Does that buy him some time? Like, I know they will want to vote him out, but does this buy him 4 or 5 weeks in the game next season that he plays with these players? Because surely they're going to feel a certain friendship, a bond, the fact that CT did not screw them out and he gave them each $50,000.
I
Well
think
done.
I think it was a smart move on his longevity in the next season. I think that it allows people not to be so terrified of him winning because it's like, well, if I'm close to him and he ends up winning and it's a similar type of situation, I'll still get a piece of the pie. And coming in and playing for 50 grand isn't horrible. So maybe I'll keep him around if he can guarantee me 50 grand. So I can see people not being as immediate to want to get him out because he was, oh, that's so kind. I can't believe he gave me so much money of his money. That's amazing. I think it was a good move for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an investment for the future. I just didn't think it held any weight. Like Rivals 3, you knew that when it came down to Bananas or Sarah getting the decision, you knew that had some weight because Bananas was going to take all the money. This, everybody talked about friendship the whole game. I was like, they're all going to get some money. I was talking on my live last night with Angie and Charles, and they brought up like, it didn't seem exactly fair to the winners to have to choose whether they were going to split the money or not. Like, if you're production, why don't you come up with the first or second and third type of level? Because if it comes down to it and CT and Casey go, it's my money, I won it, I got here first, then it's like, oh, well, you're the bad people because you didn't even try to split the money or even think about splitting the money. But it's their money. They won it fair and square. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It was fine. I knew they were going to get some money. I didn't think that they were going to take it all for themselves, but it is an investment for later on. So I did like that they split it.
Yeah, I guess, and the other big difference here is that, Johnny screwed one person. Like, these guys would have screwed 4 people if they took the money. So that's a big number of people that are going to be upset at you if they're all playing in another season in the future. So it's like, again, I think Casey, I saw one of her interviews that I read, exit interviews with US Weekly, where she said that, if it was someone that she didn't get along with or it was someone that took shots at her in the game, she would have kept it. But these were people she genuinely worked with at different times within the game. So there was a friendship there and she didn't want to go against that. And she has run 2 finals where she got nothing from playing in the finals. So she knows what it feels like not to have anything. And we've spoken about CT getting some, benefit from this. I think Casey gets massive benefit from this as well. And she can really capitalize on it because she's got, love or hate her, entertainment value. I don't always find that she's the most entertaining person to watch, but, she's going to be going deep into the next season again because she's got those social connections. She's got people who are going to want to ride or die with her. So I see her going deep yet again if she comes back. So, and I've got a feeling that production, with so many people being up in the air in regards to if they will come back, play another season or not, I've seen a few people here in the live stream saying they don't want Big Brother back. I just don't see a world where they don't come back. I honestly, at this stage, I'm preparing for the worst. I reckon we'll see Casey, Fessy, and Josh all back in probably the next season. Like, I don't see any reason why they're going to mix that formula up at this stage, especially if you've got people like Tori not coming back, CT saying he might not come back. Who else are they going to go to? Like, I'm not saying that's what I would do, but I'm just saying to the live stream here, be prepared for it. It's a high possibility.
No, I'm just like this dynamic. I'm bored with it. Like, so
Yeah.
I don't care about these producers that love Josh, love whomever. Like, fine, it's cool. Like, they've come to the show, they've done their thing, but I just want to see somebody new dynamics, like this storyline, this big group all working together, numbers game. Like, I'm bored with it. I want something new.
Well, and to answer Chris's question about who would they bring back, cast a wide net, call everybody that you know, and see who says yes and picks up the phone. There will be
no shortage.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's call everybody. There was 1,000 people on Twitter after they put up an X's thing, so it's like there's people out there willing. It's just if the challenge is willing to give them a call. And I'm telling you right now, I think there's way better competitors out there than possibly Josh and all those other people that are kind of watering it down right now with the competition wise. At least I would like to see way more new old faces than.
And if they're going to bring back Big Brother, which I hope they don't, like, at least then the bottom team has to go directly into elimination, because the fact that they can protect themselves with their numbers, just because at least one of that big group is going to win some power and keep them out of elimination. It's what also doesn't shake things up at all. I just want the people that suck, you go in, defend your spot, prove that you deserve to be there, and then I can maybe tolerate you. But just like not having to do anything and just skate to the end every single time and just have the power of numbers and not great personalities and terrible confessionals. It's like, can I get something else from you? Like, let me see you go down and defend your spot in the game a few times, and then maybe I can respect your big group number game. But right now, I'm just bored beyond belief. Throw the losers in, please.
Guys, as we get towards the end of the first part of this podcast, we are going to go into our draft teams and crown the winners for this season. Obviously, it's slightly different to the All-Stars draft pick that we've got going on at the moment, which is based on a point system. It's definitely going to be not winner takes all like we had into this. Drew's like, let's wrap this up. Let's speed through this. But I did want to say to everybody... Don't want to say to everybody in the live stream, if you've got any last minute questions that you want to ask about this season or what you think next season should be about, start putting some questions in there now before we go into All Stars, and we'd be happy to do a speed round in regards to answering some of those questions for you. Myself and Drew and Chantel will be back on the off season. I believe, Drew, I don't know if it's ready for me to announce this. Is not really appropriate because it's your channel, but I believe we'll be on your channel a few times on Angel Cake, maybe once a month or something like that. We'll come together to talk about very wide topics where if we don't get to your questions today, maybe some of those questions we'll answer. Like I would love to do a further deep dive into who is really the better competitor between, say, a Johnny Bananas or a CT or different things that we might talk about and have a lot more broader discussions outside of just this season alone.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you guys something and that reminded me.
Go ahead. Should I be afraid?
No, afterwards. I was going to ask you.
No, we'll put you on the spot now.
Well, I was going to talk about availability into the new year. I was going to ask about that.
Available.
Well, we'll definitely sort something out. It's out there in the universe now for anyone who's listening to this. Before we get into the final crowning, I guess, of the champions here. Is there anything else, Drew and Chantal, that you guys wanted to talk about in the finale that we haven't sort of touched on up until this point?
I just wanted to touch on what Chantel said about CT not being a puzzle master. And I just watched the finals to X's, so season 22, and it got to a point in the finals where they had to do the logs and they had to make it into a different, it's kind of like what they were doing in this season. And CT was in the confessional saying, this is a puzzle, DM's going to do it. She's got the puzzles all down, and he kind of just let her have reign, and then he just moved the logs whichever way she wanted him to make the thing, and they got the puzzle correct. So that's at least back then in season 22. I don't know how recent he gets to be a puzzle master, but it's at that point where I'm like, okay, he's still not into those puzzles. And then Rivals 2, he has Wes, so he doesn't even need to be a real puzzle master at that point either. But
very true. So I'm going to go into really quickly here our final draft pick. So obviously 2 people remain. Emmy, very, very admirable showing this year as the Rookie of the Year, winning quite a few of those eliminations. She did it for Romania, and I do think that she will be doing it for Romania sometime in the future again. I do expect she's going to be back. Not that something happened.
She said the N-word in her not America's Got Talent. One of those shows.
Romania's Got Talent.
Okay, was Romania's Got Talent?
X
Factor, that's it. It was one of those shows. And so people are kind of coming for her she was singing, rapping to a Nicki Minaj song. And so she did say the N-word in it. And so it's speculated that she might not be asked back because of this. So
a lot of times.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So Nani, I guess, I enjoyed Nani this season in the sense in the early stages when she was working with different people, and she was good in a partnership with those different people, I felt early on, but then very probably say 3-4 episodes and after that she just became a bit of a wallflower with Casey, I believe, for the rest of the season. Don't know if she's going to be back. If Casey's coming back, I've got a feeling we could see Nani coming back as well. I don't know if they'll be wanting to do the show without each other. It might be another couple situation where one doesn't want to do it without the other. Any final thoughts, guys, on Nani?
Well, I really wish that, I know you're saying, Chris, that Casey would have beat Nani no matter what, but like, we're never going to be able to see what would have happened if Nani was going against somebody that she didn't love and care about. I would have preferred, I think, if Casey was like, do you know what? You're my girl. Like, you've been doing this for so many years. Like, I want you to have a shot at that win. Like, I've done this only for 3 years. I've made it to 3 finals. This year is your year. And maybe let Nani win this one or whatever. And then I could see Nani running with CT at this end and maybe still getting that win. And so I wish that I could have seen that outcome instead. I would have been more interested in seeing like Nani potentially being a challenge champion instead of Casey, who I don't think has just put enough work into the show. She hasn't put the confessional. She hasn't done the noodle fight. She hasn't, had a slew of people that she's had interesting relationships with. Like, she hasn't brought that much to the show. And so I would have liked to see Nani a little bit rewarded for the 11 years that she's put in.
I will say that in that specific elimination, if Nani went up against anybody else that was in the finals, she's losing probably 10 out of 10 times, because Back Me Up is essentially a reverse tug of war. Yeah. So if you're going up against an opponent who is bigger, who is heavier, or even taller, and that's what got Nelson, is that Kyle is a little bit bigger, and then he has that wingspan to grab onto the side. So I think no matter who Nani was going up against, she was hoping that Amanda makes it to the finals, basically, to hopefully go up against her in that elimination. But to me, that was not my favorite elimination. I wish it would have been something else, like puzzles or something to get your mind trying to, after a weird night's sleep and after a really tough first day. But yeah, Nani was fine.
Eat off. Just get them to eat some gross stuff and see who eats it first, something like that. Because we didn't have the eating challenge. I like it. The eating challenge is the only reason I don't see myself wanting to do the challenge, because I reckon I would suck at it. But I love seeing other people suffer through it when they do it, because they're like, it's all about mentally being good and physically being good. But no, take this really gross stuff and stick it down your mouth and eat it. Like, I love seeing that, because a lot of people are not prepared for it. All right, so last female that didn't make it all the way, got second place. Admirable showing from her this season is Tori. I think we spoke a bit about Tori already in this podcast. I don't know if there's much else to say. I will put my hand up and say I underestimated her ability to perform coming into this season, and she's proven me wrong. So well done, Tori.
I agree. Like, I'm not that upset to say that I would have preferred to see Tori win this season over Casey. I can actually say that. So that shows how much I don't care for Casey as being the champion right now.
But you're the Big Brother person, Chantel.
I know, I love Big Brother, but I didn't love Casey, and I didn't want her to win her season. Yeah. So like, I was never a super fan. I thought she was like pretty great socially, but it doesn't translate well into confessionals or onto the challenge, in my opinion. So I don't really care for Casey. I feel like Tori was the best female competitor in this final this season, and I wish that she could have been rewarded for how well she did in this final. She didn't do badly at all, other than got chosen by the second best person in the final. You know what I mean? Like, like, even she might have even had a shot if Nelson was able to have beaten Kyle and Nelson had chosen Tori. They could have potentially have beaten Casey and CT. So I just think that she really got the short end of the stick here, and it had nothing to do with her abilities.
Drew, I know you're no big fan of Tori. What's your opinions of Tori this season?
Tori did well. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the actual season play, because I don't think a lot of the vets did much except ride the coattails of the Vet Alliance, which is a strategy that worked out. But once she was in the finals, she showed up. She did great. She was the best well-rounded competitor on the women's side. And I think if you're Tori, you don't ask for a better matchups in this type of final. It's just the format got her at the end of the day. So, I mean, it's tough to watch. I think she deserved it more because she showed up more and did a better job, but it is what it is.
All right, let's move on to the men. So firstly, obviously Nelson falling short. We had a long discussion about Nelson this season. The little engine that could, he's tiny in stature. He's not that big, not a tall guy, but he's got an engine on him. He's a workhorse. Did really well physically. He's got athleticism. I don't think there's a problem there. I don't know if there's much else to add. Got a few things to work on in the off season. Get some of that mental stuff going, and we might see more from him there. Obviously, Devin, big part of the strategy this season, but again, Devin is someone that has got some shortcomings that he'll need to work on, and I don't think that he's going to put in the work necessarily to that level, Drew, when it comes to the athleticism and just becoming better at endurance and things like that. That's where I see Josh working really hard at the moment, trying to better himself, but he doesn't have, like I've said before, he doesn't have raw athleticism. He just doesn't have that, like CT was a dad bod and went out there and still absolutely dominated because he is just an athletic person in general. Someone like Devin, I think he's got more athletic ability than someone like a Josh, but if he doesn't put in the effort in regards to his physical stuff, I can see him falling further and further down the picking order here, unless, like you said, he gets, he jumps on the back or the coattails of some of these alliances with weaker members and he rides them to the end. But even then, I think there's a lot of people that would beat him, to be honest, at the end.
Yeah, just with Devin, I don't feel like he's been like a sports guy his whole life and like he's just got out of shape. And that's kind of where I would say like CT is. Like I think CT was always good at stuff, played probably a lot of sports growing up. It just doesn't seem like Devin has that in his body. Like it doesn't seem like he's a naturally adept sports wise and physically, and so it would take him a lot of work, I would think, to get into a competitive physical state to be able to go up against a Nelson or a CT. Like he'd have to work hard. He had to be like doing like CrossFit championships, like I don't know, medicine ball throwing at the wall and the ropes and like all those. He'd have to really do a really wide range of conditioning to be able to be competitive with him, and he doesn't seem like he has that. It's not just running on the treadmill. He needs to acquire new muscles and get new muscle memory for him to be able to be competitive. So he can start with the treadmill, but I just don't know if he'll be able to do enough to be competitive in that way.
Devin sucked. Like I don't like him. Like I will never pick him in another draft unless we're doing what we're doing with All-Stars, because there's just no point in picking him. Like he became insufferable. He was funny last season. He was insufferable this season. He was on the Aftermath just as much as he was on the normal show, to where I got double heapings of him just trash talking Big T, Amanda, even though him and Amanda are essentially the same player. So I was over Devin real quick, and I'm pretty disappointed in myself that I had him as my first or second male pick. So again, if he doesn't work on himself and we're not doing confessional points or whatever, I'm never picking him.
What if he's last? You'd be like, I don't even want him. You can have him.
I'm taking a knee. Chris, you can have two players at the end.
Well, listen, Drew, you absolutely, mopped the floor with us most of this season in regards to keeping players in long term. And if we did have a point system, I'm pretty sure you would have been up there this season. Sadly, it's not the way it worked out. And myself and Chantel took it out here with the two winners. I will take the pity win here with Casey being in there. I'll take it because I don't win many of these things, so I'm not going to complain. But we've got one more person that we need to talk about, and that's Kyle. What have not been said about Kyle? He's great TV. He knows what will get a reaction out of fans. He understands the fans. He's in tune with the fans. I mean, to the point where he was going up against Josh saying that the fans will be shouting for me. So that's good that he's got that kind of awareness. And I've just enjoyed him. Like Kyle, I didn't enjoy him in the beginning when I first watched the first season that he was on, which was Final Reckoning. I thought he was a bit obnoxious back then, but I've gotten to know him quite a while over the years, and obviously went back to watch his original season. And he's another person who's growing a lot, on the show as well. And like I said, so humble in victory there towards the end, just gives me more respect for him. He's a young guy as well. I keep forgetting he's not even 30 yet, so we will still see Kyle, I think, on quite a few seasons in the future. Any final thoughts there on Kyle, guys?
I love Kyle. Kyle can always come back. I don't care if he's considered a snake or whatever. Like, I'm entertained by Kyle more than pretty much anybody in Big Brother, to be honest. So I'll take him. Always.
Yeah, he's getting to that point where he is a better player than what he was in his first season. And that first season, he made it to the finals. He's gotten muscle. He's still fun. He still takes this game not as serious, but still serious. He still loves the game. And I think that I was a little sour on him in the middle of his career because of the whole Cara Pauly thing. And it was just annoying as all get out. But
that was as
they've taken a break, and we've just gotten Kyle, and he's just been able to like flourish and be a fun dude. It really, he has been like growing on me. And last season was really, really touching that he couldn't make it to the finals. And then this season, I think it was just a better season for him. I mean, it was almost like the opposite of Big T's season last season. I mean, it was Big T had such an uprising last season, and this season she fell like way down, like she did in that satellite mission. And then this last season, Kyle was so distraught, but did so well this season. I think he's gonna keep on coming back and do well.
Yeah. I just want to say it's pretty crazy that Chantel, both me and you had CT as your first male pick. I had Casey as my first female pick for the season. That we had two first picks actually win the show. That does not happen very often in my experience of having done these drafts for Survivor, for the challenge. I mean, the first All-Stars, we were completely off with Yes winning, who was the last pick in your team. I don't know if we're going to be that lucky this season. Obviously, we'll be talking about All-Stars pretty soon, and some early first picks falling very early on this season already for us. But overall, like I said, very happy with the outcome. Obviously, finally getting in my third attempt of winning one of these draft picks, being up there with you, Chantel. I'll share the victory any day. Any final thoughts? Yeah, virtual high five. Any final thoughts on both CT and Casey before we do a quick fire round on some of the questions that's coming?
I mean, I will always appreciate CT and what he brings. I think at this point, though, I need to see somebody to go up against him. I need somebody to make him work a little bit harder. He didn't do anything this season other than lay low, have one little mini fight, fake fight, or whatever that was with Kyle. And other than that, he didn't win that much. Like he played the best game, an invisible game, to get himself to the end and allow everybody else to do, I guess, his dirty work. I just would like to see like another side coming up against him, and like I want him to put in a little bit more work next time. So and I don't want it to be everybody against CT. Like I want it to be like a nice divide down the middle where it's like there's two sides that are going against each other, not just like one big alliance taking out CT. So I hope that happens, because I would like to see him again, because I like seeing him strategize and when his brain gets working as to like what he needs to do. And if it's, he has to work with Wes, or he has to work with Bananas, or whatever it is, depending on who's on the show, I want to see that. But I want to see people come to compete to win. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
I just want to say congratulations to you both for picking winners.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you noticed.
But can I, with Chris saying that it was the first male pick was CT and he won, and Casey being the first woman pick, and that's who won.
Didn't you choose the order?
I did. I went second. But for those two players to be the first pick of their respective genders, does that show how predictable we can call the season if they are the first
100%.
people picked and they win?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to throw that out there.
And listen, a lot of our first picks were in the show deep, right? Like, I mean,
I think that Amanda could have won that, which would have been my first female pick if she had stuck around. I could see that happening too.
I mean, in a group of as many players, I forgot how many played this season, it was like 30 or 40 players or something that was in the season, to have your first 6 picks, go as deep as they did, like 70% into the game. I think it was a very predictable season. And I remember explicitly us coming back every single episode saying, next episode, it's going to get good. Next episode, they're going to turn up against each other. Never happened. So I agree. It was a bit of a boring season to watch in regards to that. I do want to go into a quick fire round of questions here before we move on here to All-Stars. And we're going to start with Melting Ice Cube 101. It's the first time I've seen you here on the live stream. So welcome to the live stream. Does anyone else expect CT clinging on to a new rookie and having Emmy implode similar to Big T next season? Chantal, why don't you take that one for us? What do you think will happen? Is there a likelihood that CT will do this again, or was it only Big T this time? Yep. He'll keep it moving.
100%. I think 100% he will do that again. That's how he thrives in this game, is having someone very strong. Like Big T wasn't strong, but having someone strong that he could work with, that will listen to everything that he says and allow him to do whatever he wants. So it will happen 100%. I don't think Emmy's going to be on the season, so unfortunately she's not going to implode. But if she
probably
is
no Big T either.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Big T won't be there either. But if Emmy is there, I think that he might latch on to Emmy again.
Yep. The Hangout Room is asking, Drew, are you still going to do your live on your channel? So we spoke about that a little bit earlier on Hangout Room, but Drew, take it away. Is there any live events coming up in the near future?
Yes, this Sunday, December 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, me and Angie and Charles will be doing a live season review like we did with Double Agents. We're going to give grades to all aspects, dailies, eliminations, all that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very opinionated. I'm sure we're going to be like looking through the wiki going like, oh yeah, that did happen. And kind of like, oh yeah, that person was on the show. But it's going to be fun. It was fun last season. It's going to be fun this season.
I'll show up to heckle.
Yeah,
please do.
Melting Ice Cube 101 asked, do you all think CT will finally get targeted next season? I'll take this one. So I think CT probably won't play this next season. I really feel like he's going to take a season at least off. He mentioned that the seasons are getting longer. It's about 4 months now that they shoot these seasons. So 8 months this year. He did not spend any time with his boy. So that's only 4 months that he actually was at home. And even outside of that, they still do events and reunions and stuff like that. So I've got a feeling... Yeah, it's got a movie coming out. I really think CT is taking at least one season break. But when he does return, I think the target on CT is going to be massive. It's going to depend on the format of the show. Do we have teams in there again? Obviously, how many people are going to be there that have played with him? Because I think CT's social game has only gotten better and better as he's continued on playing the game. So it's very 50-50. I feel like every season they should target CT, but they never do, and they always sort of pay for it towards the end as well. See if we can see any other questions here. Hangout Room saying they didn't know about Emmy that did that. No strats. Tori would mop the case. Melting Ice Cube says Tori would mop the floor with Casey in a hall brawl. Do you think that will happen, Drew? I think it's a big call.
I would love to see it. I don't think it would have been fair this season because of Casey's knee still like healing up from what happened in the last finals, but I would love to see it. Let's do it.
Yeah, 100%. I can't see any. So Sonia saying, what's the tea on Amanda? We know why she left. Yeah, we spoke about that briefly on the previous episode, right? So she had I believe a court date that she needed to be back with in the United States to go and attend that. So there was talks about her potentially throwing that challenge and then just going home. So outside of that, I don't think there's too many questions that I can see. Actually, Charles is asking, can CT win again next season? Can he do a three-peat? And the answer is always yes. I mean, CT can. Like, let's be honest, he's proven himself. He's won 5 seasons for a reason, right?
And he wins dailies when he needs to. So I have faith in him that he could do it. If anybody could do it, he could do it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Melting Ice Cube here says, at this point, Paulie can come back and win. Honestly, I'm tired of seeing repeat winners, especially when they are a bore all season.
Paulie. I heard Paulie and Kara both got the call for 38. The availability.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, apparently they got it for 37. They couldn't do it. I listened to a podcast that Paulie did with Mike Lewis on the Mike Lewis podcast, where he said they were asked if they would be available, but there was scheduling issues, especially with him doing the bobsled training that he was doing. So, and I think Kara had some project going on at the same time as well, so they both couldn't do it at that time. So, the one thing I will say is if they do come back, it will be explosive. There will be a lot of things to talk about on the podcast. I'm a big fan of seeing that messiness on the show, to be honest. So I'm here for it. Mix it up. The only thing I don't want to happen is for him to come back and just be, brought into that Big Brother alliance or something.
Fighting, or Kyle and
I
Polly
could skip.
fighting.
Yeah, Kyle and Paulie was it wasn't the greatest. So yeah, you're right. Maybe it depends on what depends on who's playing with
Like, be
him.
careful
Let's be
what you
honest.
wish for. I know this is a boring season fight wise, but like, I don't know if you really want that. Like, have you've seen all of his Instagram retorts, and like, he's so obnoxious. It's so annoying. If you hated Devin,
Yeah,
he's worse than Devin.
that's true. It's true. Dolores asks, before we move on to the next one, who surprised you the most this season? I think it's a good question. Who did better than what you thought? And I don't think there was many surprises, right? At the end, like if you look at who made the finals, there weren't too many surprises. Like Emmy's probably the only person. If you asked me in the beginning of the season, would Emmy make it to the finals, not knowing much about her, I wouldn't have thought she would go all the way.
Absolutely. And especially since she was on a lot of those aftermaths. I was like, why is Emily here? Why is she already rookie of the year? Like, she hasn't done anything yet. Like, this was early on. I was like, I am surprised that she got all the way to the end, especially since she was the one that was being sneaky and with the list and throwing Michaela under the bus. Like, that was all the same person that ended up winning her or getting to a final her first season. So I definitely would not have seen that to be her arc. And even for her to like, latch onto CT and have such like a, uncle niece relationship with him, like that was quite surprising, especially from how she started.
I'll say surprised that they made it far, Tori. Surprised that they didn't make it far, Corey. I'll say that.
Yeah. Corey had such an interesting season. It's just, you could just tell towards the end he was so over it. Like his heart wasn't in it. A lot of people turned their back on him. He got a bit of a reality check. It was sad to see him not go far in the game, especially since he was obviously my first guy pick for the season as well. But I would still pick him. I still think he could have a win in him. For both him and Nelson, it's about picking the right partner to run a final with, or being in the right duo from the start. And I think, athletically, they're not going to struggle to keep up, at least, So anyways, as we segue, guys, to go into All-Stars, I think we spent a bit more time here on the finale than what we usually do, but it was the finale. There was a lot to talk about, and to reflect on for the whole season. I'm looking forward to probably diving into more wider discussions or topics with you guys later on when we do it on Drew's channel. But for now, we're going to move into episode 6 here for All-Stars. And again, great episode. We have a lot of people playing this game that are playing it their way. They want to get to the final. There is opposing factions within the house, which makes it exciting. And early on here in episode 6, we get the King's Palace sort of, celebrating and dancing and being happy in the room. And Letarian, who comes across as a very staunch figure, someone that doesn't do this kind of thing, he joins in as well, and he says, he feels really at home with this group of people here. And boy, oh boy, is this an alliance that I'm really enjoying at the moment. I mean, if you could choose one hype man to cheer you on when you're down there in the arena in the middle of war, wouldn't it be Nehemiah? I mean, that guy it was like he was down there with Letarian at the end of the episode. And that's the kind of alliance you want. And, so much emotion here and such a great group of people there together that have formed. But obviously, the production team is going to make it interesting throughout the episode because they're going to throw a few twists out there to mix up the alliances, which I think in this case, it's probably done a little bit better than 37.
I love that alliance. I don't care. Like, it's because they're the underdogs, like they have everybody else is on against them. And like the four of them are kind of coming together and they're just trying to stick together, and they have so much heart. And like, I love watching them do the Running Man. And then you just see Melinda just like, celebrating with them, but they're just like super hype and into it. Like they just made me smile, and they made me really want to root for them, and made me really want just like the other team to like not have any more power, because I wanted them to get a win, like keep on fighting. And so I'm totally rooting for that side of the house. I love that Melinda's in it. I'm still trying to figure out how her and Letarian, what happens between them, because they're rumored to have a hookup. I don't know if it's this season or if it's next season or in the interim, but I love the four of them so far. They're my favorite part of the season.
I love both alliances. That's what I like. I like having people on both sides, and so it's nice to cheer and root for both, but then also root against who. Like, it's tough. Like, this is a season that's tough to even watch eliminations because you're like, oh, I'm getting so used to this person, or I haven't seen them in so long. I want them to win, but I also don't want this other person to lose. So it's a really fun and confusing season, but it's also just like exciting.
Oh my god, Detarian was hot this episode. I was like, oh my god, Detarian, you're so cute.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we'll get into it. It was a big episode for Letarian. How nervous, Chantel, were you when you saw Tyler get some screen time early on in the episode, talking to, I believe it was Janelle, who's also from the same real world as him. So there's a little bit of trust there between the two of them. And just talking about the
real
fact
world
that
as Johnny Bananas, just FYI, in case you forgot.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. So I mean, obviously Tyler is someone that came in with a big reputation this season. He's someone who's done really well in the past, won 2 of these championships in the past. He's gone up against some of the biggest and baddest, and he's won an elimination. So he's got a big target on his back just by what he's achieved, right, coming back into the season. And he's probably got high expectations on himself, what he wants to achieve there. But he felt like he hasn't been able to perform at that level. Getting this, bit of confessional and conversation happening here early on in the episode. The way the All Stars show is, there's not much smoke and mirrors. Tyler's probably going to be one of the people that's going to be in danger here going into this episode. What do you think went wrong here for Tyler this season as a whole, coming into this season, not being able to deliver and perform to that level that he wanted to perform at, coming back to All Stars?
Well, I think he kind of vocalized it at the end where he's like, I should have been doing a little bit more work with like getting to know somebody to be a partner with me in case we go into partners in this season. Like he knows the kind of things that are going to happen in this game. I don't know if there's others, but he is a back-to-back winner. So CT was definitely not the first. And so he's played a lot of game. And so the fact that he didn't maybe anticipate that there might be a pair situation, and TJ said in the beginning that like we might be in pairs, you might be solo, you might be in groups. Why he didn't maybe groom somebody or like talk to somebody about like, hey, if we have to work in pairs, let's work together. So I think that he was just kind of chilling and just having a good time, enjoying the people that he was there with, and he didn't really have his game face on and playing to win. So he's just kind of rolling with the punches, and I think that he just was an easy person to throw in all the time, potentially, like at least be up for nomination. And then when he got thrown in, he just didn't get to come out this time.
And it also comes back to like the social aspect of the game and who knows who for longer kind of thing. It's like Tyler has been away for a while, and it kind of reminds me of like Leah and Steve, who Tyler's done more in the game and on more seasons. But when you boil it down to Janelle, who was on the actual real world cast with him, was going with Darrell like right away, and Darrell was trying to look out for Janelle as well. So I mean, Tyler just wasn't as connected or had those social connections as everybody else did. I mean, especially not Kahada, who just come over and swiped his partner from him after Casey was like, yeah, we could do it. And then all of a sudden Kahada's like, you're in, like, girl.
Okay. like there should have been a fight there or something. Not that Casey's like the best competitor, but I think that she's a little bit better than Jasmine. Sorry, Jazz.
Yeah, and again, when that happened, I made a note, and it's just I love the Schoolyard picks because it creates so much drama. I mean, we had a couple of seasons, or last season we had Cam and CT, which was one of the early controversial moments because, I mean, Cam is such a capable person, but he wanted to play with Ashley, who he's won with before. And again, here this season, like Tyler probably was very calm in the situation and dealt with it like an adult. But I mean, inside he must have just been fuming because, he's a proven winner. He's won these things before, but Kohara, coming in from the side and just swooping the goal and taking her away. And good move by Kohara, because who knows who he would have been stuck with if he didn't get Casey in that specific position.
Jasmine
would have been
bad combo.
Yeah, but Jasmine, let's put some respect on her name. She's had a pretty decent season up until this point. She's done reasonably well in these challenges, but this specific one, the swimming, just it wasn't for her. It wasn't meant to be this specific daily challenge.
Well, the thing is with Jasmine, it's not that she isn't capable of doing decently well, but her track record is very, very bad. I don't think she's won any eliminations. And yes, she has heart. Like the Latarian's like, yeah, she has the most heart out of anybody, which is awesome. But it only really matters if you can back it up by a win or being successful. And so I wouldn't want to be on a team, like just a duo with Jasmine, knowing that even though she has a lot of heart, it doesn't really follow through with a win. So that's kind of why it's just like, she doesn't really do well ever, even if she tries hard.
She does have one elimination win, by the way, in Rivals, but it was mainly John A solving that puzzle before Sarah did.
Right. Yeah. I remember.
Speaking the truth here, says that he does feel bad for Tyler because honestly, the whole part where he did his part in the daily, while Jasmine just got a slap on her wrist with the whole situation, just rubbed him the wrong way. And I mean, I get it. This is one of the ones where you can be a little bit more forgiving of production. I don't think they always plan for someone to get injured, be removed from the game. There's probably certain COVID protocols, I'm assuming, still in place on who can come in. Do they have someone extra on location? Do they keep an eliminated player there for a little bit longer in case something like this happens to give them a second chance? Kendall going out the way that she did, and we'll get into that. Obviously, for me, that sucked, being the first female pick for the season. And also I felt like she had a lot to give this season. I wanted to see Kendall go up against Jodie head to head in a final. I thought that this pretty much, in my opinion now, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit here. I kind of mentioned that I'm getting vibes from Brad, like Brad's going to win the season. He's talking a lot. They're giving him like a lot of the things where they're making him sound like he's making sense of the strategy and the direction of the season when we know he's not necessarily this mastermind. He now gets paired up with Jodie, and like I can see the way to the end for those two. I can see them win the show because who's going to really, if they stay in these pairs, who's going to challenge Jodie? She's a beast. She beats most of the guys at the moment, like Darrell said.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see. I think that the strongest, most well-rounded pair. The other dude is maybe Janelle and Darrell, but we do see at some point Janelle is going to go into the arena. So I don't know if they just come in last or what happens there, but it is a potential that Janelle and Darrell are going to go home. So I don't know who could actually really test them right now. And I feel like I have both of them. But I have to refresh my memory here. But do I have both?
I got that.
Drew's got Brad and you've got Jodie. So I think you guys have got a very strong.
Brad and Jodie on my other draft. Okay, sorry.
I have I wanted to see what the pairs look like within the teams and who's paired up with two and who has as many teamed up with each other. Chantel actually diversifies really well because none of her players are partnered up with each other. There's two players that are with my two players and two of her players are with Chris. So you have Jodie with Brad, and then you have John A with MJ, and then Chris's players are Latarian with Jasmine, spoiler alert, and then Darrell and Janelle. And then both Chris and I each have a couple of players that are partnered up with each other, like Kahada and Casey for him, and then I have Melinda, Nehemiah, and Ayana and Tech paired up with each other.
I'm super nervous. I might not even
have stacking daily wins. Chris, I might not even have a player
in the final. I might not even have a player.
I don't know if you will, to be honest, because we're just gonna jump to the end, whatever. Everybody that's watching right now, I think, has watched the episode, and so I can see. So they're gonna have the life shield, Latarian and Jasmine for the next episode, but I don't know if they're gonna make it out of the following episode alive, unless we get a Nehemiah, like on one of the four horsemen or whatever we're calling them, King's Palace, to win, which is like 40% chance maybe. I could see them going in next, so, and not coming out.
I desperately need a Brad or Darrell win again next episode to try and keep some safety for my team. But
Brad or Darrell, how would that help your team?
Well, if one of those
throw
two,
in Latarian again, I think.
Yeah, and Latarian obviously can save himself, but I mean, if Brad and Darrell wins it, they'll protect each other. Like surely they'll try and figure out a way.
Maybe Casey and Kahada might stay safe. Is what you mean? Gotcha.
Exactly. So for me, even though I really enjoy the King's Palace, like if I'm being selfish and for trying to survive here in this draft picks. Like, I've got to shout for the OG alliance of proven winners, I guess, more so than some of the King's Palace who's come together as the side alliance, which I'm really enjoying. I mean, I'm a fan first, and then I'll talk about the drafts, but it is nice. I've got the taste of victory now, one win. I want to win another one. I want to go back to back, but I think it's going to be tough here, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, don't ever count Darrell out. I would say, like, when you look at your list of players, you got Kahutta and Casey partnered up with each other. Yeah, you got Jasmine, but at least you have Darrell, who I'm always going to put a lot of faith in. I think he's more connected, even though Nehemiah is on a different alliance. I think he still has a connection with Darrell, and Darrell has even said that he's cool with Nehemiah. So I don't think if Nehemiah was taking shots, he wouldn't necessarily go for Darrell right away. I think he would go for some other players in the surrounding alliances. So I would never count him out. We basically, if this season goes as what the first All-Star season was, we basically have 2 more eliminations to go through, and then we have 10 players making it into the finals. So, I mean, you only got 4 players that are going to be possibly eliminated, and then you got to worry about a purge, and then see who's going to be making it into a final. So, I mean, you got 6 players that aren't going to see the end of this game. So if you're comfortable, or we'll see.
I just want to give a shout out here to the Hangout Room, who's just done a 70 Rand, for those who don't know, ZAR from South Africa, 70 Rand donation saying, thank you, Drew, for following me on Twitter before I even started watching your lives and introducing me to Chantel and Chris. I have reality TV community now that I love. Thank you so much for the donation. And what a great community to be a part of. Really, thank you to everybody that has been supporting us this season as, I guess, a trio. This is the first season that we've covered from the beginning to the end. The season prior to that was only myself and Chantel, and then we enjoyed having Drew on the show so much towards the end of All Stars 2 that he asked him if he wanted to come back and make some time in his busy schedule. And this community has been awesome to be a part of, and we've consistently seen the growth in everybody here in the live streams being very active, and it's so much more fun when you guys are active in the live asking questions and things like that. So I know Drew and Chantel would agree. So it's great to be a part of this reality community. But thank you very much for that donation. It is not needed, but much appreciated.
I'm just reading next, though. The Hangout Rooms hasn't watched the episode. I'm sorry.
You want to jump out if you haven't watched the episode.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. I mean, I just assumed that people would have watched it at this point. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil you.
No, well, we're literally recapping the episode, so it's bad on you, Hangout Room. Like, you gotta, and I think it's because in South Africa there's a delay and when probably
when
you can view it.
Get the episode. That makes sense.
I'm sorry. One.
That's true. Very true. But just to touch on the whole reality TV community, I've really only been part of this community since 2020. So, something that COVID and lockdown has brought me is being a part of this community. And I was talking with Sarah from Nerdtainment about it the other day, and just like how lucky we are to have like these group of people that enjoy talking about these shows as much as we do. There are a lot of other people. Nobody in my friend group knows what the challenge is. Nobody, like, other than like my mom and like my brother, like nobody I know talks about these shows. So it is a breath of fresh air that I'm allowed to have these new friendships and new relationships and meeting so many people from all over the world that has a similar passion. So I agree with you, Hangout Room. Thank you for being a part of my community, and I'm really happy to be part of yours.
Yeah, Drew,
definitely.
I'm just since really he addressed this to you, and you're the one who
I can't believe it. I mean, I follow people on Twitter here and there, and I'm happy that he got to know about us through me in some way, and I'm very happy about that. Same with everybody else talking about that they don't have a lot of friends who watch reality TV, and it's nice. I mean, I just love going through my comments and just hearing everybody's thoughts on the challenge and being like, having it be normal, being obsessed over a reality TV show or reality TV and making it feel like it's normal and validating is just amazing. I will say, because if I go to some random work and just start yelling about a guy named Johnny Bananas, people will think I'm bananas. So,
or Paula Walnuts.
Yeah, David here says it's so crazy how popular these shows are now, and yet no one I know watches it. And I feel like I feel like that's all of us. Like that, I'm exactly the same. Before, Adam Jimba and I connected, and he got me onto Reality Pop. I didn't know many people that I could talk about Survivor or Amazing Race or Big Brother or The Challenge and things like that. And it's exciting to know that there's other people out there that love talking about the show and that are as passionate as we are about it, and the crazy antics that people get up to. So, such a great community to be a part of as well. So, love seeing the community show up every week, and for us to be able to continue to do this. This is why we do it. It's for you guys coming up here and being a part of the conversation. But I do want to jump back into it. It's hard to segue back into the show after that because we kind of sidetracked a little bit here. But the one thing, I guess, and if you haven't watched the show, always be careful because we do things a little bit different from most recaps. We don't go chronological. It's a little bit all over the place, but we kind of want to make this sound like we're just having a conversation. Wherever it goes, wherever we feel the conversation flows is normally where we're going to go. So sometimes we start at the beginning, sometimes we start at the end, and we just sort of work our way from there. But overall, we're going to lose some people here. And before we take them off the board here, Drew, I want you to go into the points because obviously this is a little bit different. So what are we looking at points-wise here for this week? I know Kendall had absolutely no confessionals coming off, or maybe one, I don't know, before this, but she had almost zero confessionals coming into this. So I was very worried when we get to see her talk to her kids in the beginning of the episode and we see a little bit from her. I was like, okay, either she's winning this thing, which is highly possible because she hasn't had a win yet, or she's gone. And obviously my worst fear happened here with losing Kendall this episode. But what has happened on the points here so far for this episode and so far this season?
So real quick, I just want to go over a highlight of this episode with confessionals is that every single person got a confessional this episode. The first time since episode 1. Janelle hadn't gotten a single confessional since episode 1. She got a few here because of Tyler, which I thought she was going to get sent into the elimination with how much time we were seeing of her. Both Tyler and Latyrian got more confessionals in this single episode than in the first 5 combined. So
wow.
We're getting down to the wire here where confessionals are going to start building up for the players who are left, especially when we start dwindling down, especially going into the final. So these confessional points are going to be huge when it comes down to it, especially if you don't get a win or anything. Last week, Chantel was in 3rd place with 137 points. Chris was in 2nd place with 138. And I was in 1st place with 165. We've had a shakeup in the point totals where in 3rd place is now Chris with 157 points. And I have to say, because Kendall was medically DQ'd from the season, she finishes with less points than Derek and Leah, who left in episode 2. Wow. They had 9 total points. She had 7 total points. She's ending with 7 total points. Chantel jumped up huge after this episode, but she's in 2nd place and she has 173 points.
Yeah,
jumping up massively. Jody, MVP of this whole season. She became the top point scorer so far with 47 total points. She has 29 confessionals, 3 daily wins, and an elimination win. And something tells me she is not going to stop there. And then my team is still in 1st place. I have 192 points with my leading scorer as Nehemiah, but he only has 41 points. He only had like 4 or 5 confessionals this episode. But it's coming down to it that you're stacking some daily wins. I mean, Chantel has a good chance of winning daily challenges because she has diversified into 4 different teams out of the possible 7 teams that are left. So it's going to come down to it. But if, say, Melinda and Nehemiah can pull in, or some Casey and Kahutta can pull in, you're stacking some daily wins, stacking some elimination wins.
I think you have to put all your money on Durrell, Chris. For
I am so worried, right? I mean,
game.
Casey for confessionals, hopefully. Durrell for hopefully some daily wins. It's going to be. I mean, Jasmine, she's been pretty decent at the confessionals, I feel like, this season as well. She's been getting a lot of airtime. Like, she must be doing okay on that front. But what's her chances of winning dailies? And she's probably going to be seen as an easy target here as we get into the end game to throw her in before we get to a finale and for someone to easily beat her. Or the exact opposite could happen and people might want to keep her there because it's a layup in the finals. Who knows? It's hard to know these things in advance until it actually plays out on your screen. But I definitely am nervous about my position in the game. I do think Darrell is probably the only realistic shot at someone winning this season from my team. But in my mind, I honestly, and I don't know what you guys think about this, I just think that Jody and Brad as a team, like I see a path for them here. Like I just think that they're going to be extremely difficult to beat, and I don't know if there is pound for pound a team that can keep up with them at this point. Who's the team that's going to take them out? Like if we're looking at the board here right now, Nehemiah is with Melinda, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's not that strong. You've got Darrell and is it Angela or
Janelle?
Janelle, sorry, Janelle. So I don't know what Janelle's capabilities are like, but I know Darrell is pretty good. It's just when you look at it pound for pound, and you look at who the females are that are on the board. I guess maybe we're sleeping on Janae and MJ. Maybe that's another team that could be very strong because Janae is pretty strong. MJ seems to be pretty good at this stage, but I do really feel like if we stay in these teams, like Brad and Jody is just such a powerhouse team at this point.
Well, and with Jody, it just doesn't seem like she's trying that hard, and she's always just coming out in front on like first place. It seems like a lot of people are like working hard and they're trying to do well, and okay, that's a good time. That was a competitive time, and then Jody just looks like she's like, oh, I'll just go in and do a little swim and a little. It doesn't look like she's exerting that much effort to be able to be so good. So I feel like she will be hard to beat. She's very well rounded, and in these competitions, she doesn't seem to get nervous or like get worried about anything. She's just like always good. So
yeah, it's gonna be a tough team to beat, but I also think that with All Stars, it's nothing like what we were just talking about in the first like hour and 20 minutes of this chat. It's like, oh, why won't they take a shot at CT? This All-Stars cast will not be afraid to take shots. Like if Nehemiah and Melinda somehow get into power, they're definitely going to be taking shots, and it's whoever has the life shield that they're going to have to vote and get around. It's just that they're going to take a shot. It's just who's going to be able to take them out or what the elimination is going to be. They haven't been super physical lately, but if there is going to be some elimination or somebody's just not feeling well or they get tripped up or something, I mean, anything could happen. As long as you take a shot, there's a possibility of possibly taking out another team. And if Jody and Brad don't win, I think that they're going to be the first ones to have a shot being taken at them because Brad is kind of puffing out his chest, feeling good. Jody has won 3 dailies out of the first 6 episodes that we've had, or the first 5 daily challenges that we had. I mean, she's absolutely crushing it. So it's going to be interesting how this game is going to play out, but we'll just see how it goes.
Yep. So just before we get back into the challenge, just want to acknowledge a few more of the chats here in the live. So Dolores says, Chantal, it's your podcast that got me into watching the challenge. The 3 of you together makes my Friday night, although Michelle and Fanta are the bomb as well. Thank you all so much. And then there's a few people here that have said that they are challenge orphans. I believe Christina was the other person. Yeah, here we go. I'm also a challenge orphan, been watching for 15 years, and now no one knows that I'm watching it. So great to have a place where we can all talk about the show together. And then some, not on brand, I guess, with what's happening on All Stars, but apparently there were a few people at Hearts of Reality, and Nelson was hitting on Fair Play's girl, which didn't go over very well with Fair Play. So he was giving Nelson a lot of spice on his recap as well. I'll have to go back and listen to that. It should be funny.
I'll listen to that. I'm not a fan of Fair Play, but I'm a fan of like, reality TV world gossip. So
yeah, so David knows what we're going to be talking about next. We're going to be talking about steamy, sexy Laterian here this episode. Laterian gets chosen here this episode to go down, and he teams up with Kendall, who he has partnered with before, and they did pretty well. I think they won that specific daily there last season, and in this specific scenario they work well together again. I know we're talking about Laterian, but just hats off to Kendall as an absolute champion, jumping down there, hurting herself and still finishing the challenge before she ultimately gets pulled from the game. It just shows the strength that she has as a competitor, and that she's got no quit in her. And I actually even have more respect for Kendall. Who would have predicted Kendall would go out with an injury? So unlike Drew with not choosing Devin in any future, draft picks, I would still pick her, even though she wasn't the greatest at the points when it comes to the confessionals. I think as a competitor, I
7
respect her.
points, though.
Yeah,
7
I know.
points.
Maybe
I don't.
This is why I
like,
lose these things. That's
7
why I lose these
points?
things.
Like, if we're going for points, like, yes, she might be a good competitor, and yes, she might get to the end, but you might want to take somebody that will get you 50 points and go out, then get you to the end and lose the finale and get you 7 points. So
yeah, I know. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too loyal here, like in the sense that I just like Kendall as a competitor. But I mean, who would have predicted she was going to get injured? And the whole reason she got so little confessionals here this season was the fact that she didn't go deep. Last season, she was all over the confessionals early on. So I do think you never know what's going to happen. But ultimately, these two work very well together here in this episode still. But Letarian is going to be under fire when it comes to the nominations because he doesn't have a partner in the game, so it makes him an easy target. And also, when you look at who is going to go out there with Brad and Jody having to put people down there, we've got two teams with life shields that are going to be able to save themselves. So he was always going to be in the crossfire, being in that alliance that is going against Brad and Jody's alliance. And he has to go down there and fight and prove himself, doing again a pole wrestle in an elimination, which he did extremely well in that first season against Ace. But he has a much bigger competitor to deal with here this season. It's not as easy to you wouldn't expect it would be as easy for him to win it, but he performs when his when he needs to go down in the arena. He has got a different type of mentality that he takes to the arena.
do you think it still would have been a pole wrestle if Kendall was fit to perform or to participate?
Well, the thing with the pole wrestle is it's easy to set up. So, I mean, you could very easily do something else. What I would say is, what other potential eliminations do they have in rotation and that they have planned out to do for the season? And how difficult is it to put another elimination together prior to this would probably more so answer that question. Because, to do a pole wrestle, you just get a ring out there and you just get a pole in the middle and say wrestle. So it's
but they
pretty
might
easy to
have
set up.
known a couple days in advance that she wasn't coming back. Like, I don't know what the timeline actually is. And they might have been like, okay, let's not do this. Let's, this is the first time we have two big guys. Like, this is a time where you want, like, I only want to see pole wrestle stuff or hall brawl when people are equally matched size wise. Otherwise I was already really uncomfortable watching this one. Like, I was like screaming. I'm like, but I wouldn't have felt good of seeing anybody like be slamming Jasmine to the ground. So I was just curious as to whether or not you thought that maybe they decided for it to be pole wrestle when they knew that wasn't going to be girl against girl.
I would say let's look back on some challenge history and think of any other times that the challenge maybe had some forthright of maybe wanting to swap out a challenge or an elimination. Let's think about free agents where Cara has a cast on her hand and they walk into the elimination ring and it's going to be wrecking wall. And I think that no matter what, the challenge just has a narrow focus and they're like, we have pole wrestles set up. We have to send them in. And if it was Kendall was still injured, I think they would have still done it. And if she was cool to go, Jasmine's getting slammed all over the place. I think the challenge isn't thinking like, oh, well, we'll just swap this in now or do this differently. I think they always have a plan. I think that's why they're very rigid on the eliminations. And I think their track history just continues with that line of thinking that, oh, we got it set up. Like this is the pole wrestle night. We can't change it now. So that's what I would think. I think they would just keep doing it, which is kind of not a good way to make entertaining TV at the end of the day, because you could have a potentially better elimination for a better matchup or make a better matchup or make a better storyline, but that's how they want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting going into this, like Tyler, he's got strength, but he just didn't have the stamina, the endurance. He clearly hasn't, this is not his thing anymore. Like he hasn't trained to do the challenge year on. And I think that if he was to come back and do this again, and probably know that there is a possibility he could come back, I think we'd see a very different Tyler in, say, season 4, season 5, where he would actually train and get ready to go down there, because we know that this probably isn't Tyler at his best going up against Letarian. Not taking anything away from Letarian, he deserved the win. He did extremely well down there and proved himself once again. But I do think that Tyler if he does come back, we'll see a different version of him. I do think that he didn't have that competitiveness to him coming into the season because he's been out of it for so long, and people move on with life and grow on and become adult, do adult things, become maybe a little bit more into that day-to-day thing, which is not necessarily being out there having to compete in shows like this, where if he came back, I think we'll see something different. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think Tyler coming back, he would bring a different intensity? What's your thoughts in regards to that?
I think that's like a typical Tyler narrative. Like, I don't remember him being that competitive his first couple seasons, and then he decided to something switched, and he became a fierce competitor, and then he wasn't really playing anymore. So I think that he does have the capability of coming back. He knows what it's like to win. He knows now that he's been in this game what it would take to win. He's already recognized, like, oh, I have to make alliances. I have to have a strong female partner in case we're going to be working in partners. I think he's learned enough from this season up until now that just being the jovial, like, good friend isn't enough anymore to get him to the end. And so I think he would come back. And I think that he probably got bitten by the challenge bug again, and he's probably in it as much as he could possibly do it. So I think we'd see him again, and I think he'd be in shape if he came back.
Because Tyler, to me, always came across as someone that was very proud of his record of being very good at the challenge and being able to take on these, not boastful, but just this gave him a sense of pride, the fact that he beat some of these big names and he won some of these shows and things like that. So I feel like that champion's mindset, that when you lose something and you get shown up, is just to, no, I want to go back there and show a different version of me, like who I am. Like, I feel like that fire will be there for him now coming into a new season. And like, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that storyline play out, him going away, training, getting back in shape, coming back for this with a different mindset in the next season, and then hopefully doing well. He's not rumored to be on the next season, right, Drew? He's not part of that season 3 cast, right?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is. Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
When Bananas hopped out of the cast, Tyler was the alternate to be on board. So Tyler is rumored to be on the All-Star 3 cast list.
And it's a short turnaround time, so I question how much time he would have had to go away and like train and get himself in shape. But I guess the political side, he'll come with a different mindset in this next season, but it will take time for him to get himself there. I mean, we've literally seen someone like CT over the last year and a half transform himself back into an absolute athlete, but we've seen that happen on our TV screens, where even last season when he came into Double Agents, he wasn't where he was in the beginning of Spies, Lies, and Allies. It takes a bit of time to get there.
The only thing, though, I'm actually just looking at the cast right now, and he's up against some people. So I'll name them. So we got Wes, Mark Long, Darrell, Brad, what's his name? Derek himself, Nehemiah, MJ, Jordan, Latarian, and Cyrus. So like I don't know if he's gonna be able to do well this particular season because that's pretty stacked. And I'm not sure. I guess maybe he would team up with Wes because they're kind of from the same generation. I'm not sure what he's going to do. Or if it'll be like
should make for an interesting season. I did see the cast for that, and I am quite excited about that. I think we'll probably talk some more about that and some of our off-season content that we'll be talking about in the podcast. There is a few people here in the chat that said that if Jasmine and Kendall were to go on and face each other in the pole wrestle, that Kendall doesn't really have that in their mind, that fighter's mentality to get physical, and they think that it would be more evenly matched than what we think. I do think when it comes to pole wrestling, weight difference, height difference, that type of thing does make a bit of a difference. And one thing I will say about Kendall is she is a fighter. Like, I mean, I don't think she's going to look for confrontation, but her hurting herself, going down, still completing that challenge, and then ultimately having to be pulled out kind of shows a different type of fighter mentality where I think certain people would have quit. Then again, Jasmine jumping off last episode, hurting herself, continuing on shows a fighter mentality within Jasmine, which I also very much respect. So it's going to be interesting. But now in looking back to it, Letarian did make a comment that episode about how Jasmine jumped off and that it was really admirable how she finished, and he really respected Jasmine for that. they're a team now. So a little bit of foreshadowing that we wouldn't have been able to see prior to this episode. How do we think Laterian and Jasmine is going to be working as a team? I feel like it might go better than what we expected, because Jasmine has got some friends on both sides now, and Laterian is sort of with the one side. So they're kind of that group that have got, there's one person from the King's Palace, and then there's one person from Janae's alliance kind of together. So there might be some safety in that. I would think by diversifying the parts of the house that they're with, maybe they don't get thrown in as often.
Well, they're not going to get thrown in next because they have the lifesaver. So they have to, if they could make it past the one after that, then they'll be able to get into the final. But we still haven't seen that scene where Jasmine blows up. And that seems like, now I'm looking at it as a blow up of somebody getting thrown in right before the final against someone that they don't want to go up against, or doing the worst and having to go into the arena against somebody that they don't want to go up against. So I don't personally see them running the final.
And also it comes down to who knows who. And if you're looking at it, and Nehemiah and Melinda and Tech and Ayana are way tighter of a foursome, and they have to get rid of somebody, or they have to put it, because Darrell said it, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. I mean, if you have somebody who's winning, somebody who's going into the elimination, then you got to nominate 2 teams, and we only have 7 teams left. You only got like a couple of teams to choose from here. So, I mean, if you're has to throw in somebody, or somebody has a life shield and you have to throw in somebody, I mean, you're going to take a shot on the player that has another player on the opposite side along with your own member, and especially if that member isn't as well connected. And I just think that Laterian was such, like, he has like Nehemiah and Tech, and they know him from like All-Star 1, but I mean, I think he was such a loner because he was so intense and just wanted to prove that he deserved to be an All-Star and to be there. And I think Nehemiah and Tech have just been so much more connected that if it came down to one or the other, they're going to throw in Laterian and Jasmine over Tech and Ayana, or Nehemiah and Melinda. So that's where the other situation is going to be difficult too, with that pairing.
And we haven't seen his ambulance scene yet, right?
No.
And wait, and did we ever see Tyler's?
No, we never saw Tyler being gassed out on the ground either. So I feel like there's some production magic happening there. Maybe it was after that swim that we just saw in this episode where he was just gassed out lying on the floor. Because I think
it was the first Synode where the puzzles, where they had to run back and forth to get the giant puzzle pieces, and then they had to swim to get the second set of puzzle pieces. I think that's where it came from with the but because they were talking about how hot it was, and I thought people were going to start.
I was worried. I remember I was like, oh my God, is this where I'm losing all my players? Because it's so hot outside. And then we lost nobody, and then I forgot about it. But do you think that's the same deal with Laterian as well? Like, that's where we see this like hot gassing out thing? Or like,
I feel like Laterian was by the ambulance, right? So like, was there a scene where he was on a stretcher or something like that? It was a little bit different.
I can't remember if he was like wet or anything, because the next 2 challenges that I can think of is that the next one is going to be the car one where they have to grab the flags and they're on the stretcher on top of the car, and then there's also another one where there's 3 trucks, and that's like the pinnacle one. Like, I think that's going to be happening right before the finals, where there's
it could be the final trucks.
Even. And so I mean, if he's not wet, then it's going to be one of those 2 challenges, but it's going to be weird because I don't think any of those are really physically exhausting. Yeah.
So maybe he does make it to the final. Maybe
he gasses out or something happens in the final. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen people get hurt or, physically exert themselves past their own capabilities because they didn't realize how far they can push themselves and then get medically evacuated in a final. I think it could happen, I do want to touch on the new pairs that have been formed here. Who's your favorite pair? Because for me, I really like the Tech Ayana pair. Ayana obviously choosing Tech because she's got googly eyes for him. Tech nearly killing her in the first challenge by jumping on her in the water. I just think it's going to be a fun pair, and they both bring so much steam when they go down into the arena. I don't know if they will actually have to go down in the arena again, but it could make for some entertaining television here towards the end of the season. Really shipping the Ayana Tech duo so far here for me in the early stages of this new, I guess, layup of what we've got or layout that we have with the teams?
I'm most intrigued by the Johnny MJ duo because there's rumors that they become a little bit of an item. I don't know when that happens, if it's during the season, between seasons, or next season. But just seeing them getting along so well and working so well, like I'm starting to notice that they have good chemistry. So I'm enjoying watching them work together. And yeah, just obviously I love Tech and Ayana as well, but I'm just giving you a different flavor.
Yeah, and I'm going to do the same thing. We already talked about Brian Jody a little bit later, earlier in this podcast. Why did I say later? We're not time travelers. And then you guys said two different ones. I'm going to say Melinda and Nehemiah. I think both are in their own alliances. Also, they are from Real World Austin. And after hearing Melinda's story in a previous episode, and then this episode where she was just like talking about how grateful she is to be working with Nehemiah because they have that connection, they have that rapport with each other. And she just seemed like she was just like super happy to be working with Nehemiah in this season. And I think that they have a great connection and communicate well with each other. And they both want to do well this season. So I'm going to be looking out for them, and hopefully they can keep on winning some stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully they just win out. Let's just win out, Melinda and Nehemiah. Please stay on my team.
Hey, I'm a big Nehemiah fan. So I mean, even though he's not on my team this season, which I could kick myself because I had the opportunity to pick him, but I'm not against them doing well this season or going deep. It is a fun duo. There's so many fun players still left in the game. There's not really anyone at this point that I'm looking at and be like, oh yeah, I wish these two are the next two to go. Like I'm actually looking forward just to seeing how this season plays out, who wins. I'm here for the show. Is there anything, guys, that you feel like we haven't touched on here in the All-Star season that you wanted to have a bit of a chat about before we sort of start wrapping things up here as we hit the 2-hour mark on our stream today? It's been a bit of a longer one, obviously, due to the finale.
Well, I just wanted to ask you guys, like, do you think that the reason why Kendall hurt herself is because she's jumping off such a high height with a life jacket on? I mean, I understand that it's there for the safety of the swim and it's deep water and maybe they didn't feel safe, but I just don't know if jumping from that high is good wearing a life jacket that keeps you up at the top. Like there's buckles on it. Like it just like you just have to, and you're also holding your goggles. Like I just think it was a recipe for somebody to get hurt. And unfortunately, because she has that muscle tissue disorder or whatnot, I don't know exactly what it was, that she was a little bit more inclined to pop out a rib or whatnot. But I think it's the danger of jumping with the life jacket. Like throw your life jacket in, jump in and grab your life jacket when you're down there, or give them flutter boards or floaties at the buoy. But like, I don't think jumping in with the life jacket is the move.
It's an interesting observation. I didn't notice that she had it on when she jumped, but I do remember some of them had it in their hand as they were jumping down, and they didn't have it on while they were jumping. So maybe that happened after she got injured. But for me, it just when you look at the anatomy of the body, all the joints and things like that, if you're jumping down, that's going to put strain on your joints because the downward momentum, and this is going to pull back up. Surely that's not good for your spine. Surely that's not good for your body as a whole. So I'm not surprised she got injured. I didn't even pick that up, but great observation. And clearly, someone should test these things out or think about it and think it through before they even go and do them with the challenges, because safety should be paramount. And like that's one thing with the challenge where they do get found out sometimes when it comes to the safety aspect of some of their challenges. Good observation.
Well, I think also this is another disadvantage of going first in a challenge because they wore the life jackets. She jumped and she was a little forward facing more, but by the time we got to say like Jody and Brad, they're jumping in without their life jackets and they're going straight down. Absolutely. And everybody just decided to go that way. I kind of think that there should have been some safety precautions, and having the challenge, like risk takers, whatever we're calling them, the safety people doing the dives and then kind of like instructing them how to maybe do it safely. Maybe like go down feet first, go straight down, don't wear your life jacket or whatever. Like give them a little bit of a tutorial. Like don't tell them how to do it, but just like give them a little bit of a tutorial to help them not injure themselves. And don't let your whole game be destroyed by jumping slightly off or wrong in a way, because you never want to see anybody leave the game because of an injury, especially Kendall, who is an all-star in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I understand wanting to feel safe by having the life jacket, but it's not great to jump into water with at all. Like,
Honestly, I would just get
you don't
rid
do
of.
that.
I personally would just get rid of the life jacket as a whole. Like, I'd rather just go and swim on without it. Like, because it's in a pool, it's in a lake. There's no current there. There's no. I mean, if you can swim, then
I think like they just probably are not confident in their swimming. It's kind of like Nelson in the main season. Like, I think that would have been more, it would be made more sense for Nelson to have a life jacket there, take it off so then they can dive down and undo whatever they needed to do and come back up. Like, that's kind of the move. So I would say, like, throw your life jacket in, jump in, swim to your life jacket, go to your buoy, dive down, and just have, like, you saw Janelle after using the life jacket kind of like a flutterboard. And so people realize that you can't actually do anything quickly with a life jacket on. It keeps you above water when you're trying to move through water. So yeah, I think that's the reason why she got hurt. And Jody definitely noticed. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Jody didn't wear her life jacket specifically because she was like, that didn't allow her to have a clean entry into the water. Looked painful.
Yeah. Kendall did say that she had a medical condition that makes her bones dislocate. So obviously that wouldn't have helped either. Struggling at art is saying, I think, to be honest, Kendall should have picked a smaller platform, or the smaller platform to jump off if she's got that issue, instead of jumping from the top one. And I think, the favorite line of the episode was "I am a goat," and then the goat going off in the background as Letiria was talking to the camera.
Yeah, no, I thought it was hilarious that he's like, did I just hear a goat? Was that a goat? And I thought he was referring to himself, but no, he was actually asking
There was
if
a goat.
there was a goat.
Yeah. Guys, it's been great talking to you about this episode of the All-Star season and also finishing off the Challenge 37. I think we've sort of brainstormed and came to a conclusion that most likely we'll do the reunion as a whole. So if there's a part 1 and a part 2, we'll try and find out what's happening, guys. And we'll be back next week in any case, like we said, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Friday to talk about the Challenge All-Stars episode regardless. But we may only talk about All-Stars if there's a 2-part reunion, and then do one full reunion the next week. We're also going to be back this coming week at this stage. Probably, I haven't actually spoken to you guys about a time. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, maybe. What time would work for you?
Oh, just Wednesday's just a bad day for me because, like, then my best friend's like, "Oh, let's go out for dinner. I made us a dinner reservation at 6:30." I'm like, "No, I have a course that's so I have to like change so many things on Wednesday already." So unless it's in the afternoon. If it's in the day before 6 p.m. Eastern,
what about this problem solving with you guys here? What if we hit 2 birds with one stone and we do a bit of the recap of the Survivor and All Stars recap together? Because we've kind of been doing 2. Do you want to do it as a separate one?
Maybe separate. We can do separate on the same day.
Great. Actually, no, not same day. Let's do Thursday.
Oh, right.
It's going to be my Christmas day. This is what happens all the time, guys, when we're not live. So you get to peek behind the curtains a little bit here.
Insider information. Or be the Challenge Insiders. Like, this is what it really is. How about any other day but Wednesday? Maybe a Thursday?
Yeah. Well, what do you look, Drew? What does it look like for you on Thursday, 8 p.m.? Do you reckon you can make it work?
Sadly, I cannot. I am doing a live that day. I already.
All right. Instead of trying to make it work and pushing it in for next week, let's go and for now just lock it in. We'll be back next week, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to do the All-Stars. And then the week after, I know it's going to be a little bit late, but it'll be well worth the wait. There's a lot of things happening here before the end of the year. We'll come back and we'll do the week after that. I think we'll do something that is going to involve a recap of the Survivor season, which we promised you guys. We'll talk about Survivor as well. And it will be well worth the wait.
All right.
No problem. Let's do that. Let's do that. All right, guys. Overall, y'all should sow a challenge season tier list. Oh yeah, we will. Yeah, I think we will definitely do a challenge tier list at some point. I think Drew and Chantal will be a little bit better, and I'll have to rely on them for those prior to season 12 seasons, season 12 and onwards. I
have to do a rewatch of the first 12, so I don't remember them that well.
There we go. Well, both me and you will have to do our homework, but I'm open to it. Drew, what is happening on your channel here over the next week as we head into Christmas? Is there anything special coming up? Do you have some special plans on your channel in regards to the recaps or your content coming out? Will you be wearing some festive clothing and things like that, since you like to dress up?
Of course we'll be. That's why I was asking you if we were going to go live this coming week, this next week, because I was like, if not, I'm wearing my Christmas stuff now. But yeah, guys, do your homework. I'm already on season 22. Catch up with me. 1 through 22. Let's go.
I've done 11 through 20 through 30 recently, so I just do the earlier ones.
I'm going to be doing my own challenge ranking of every season coming up in 2022. So it's fun. I can't wait to hear what you guys' thoughts on it. We can debate it. This week on Angel Cake is the normal review and recaps, and just trying to enjoy the holidays while also getting a lot geared up for what could possibly be a long off season for the challenge, if rumors are correct. And this Sunday, December 19th, live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Angel Cake Entertainment, season review of Spies, Lies, and Allies. And I cannot wait to not have to say that name ever again. And those three words ever in the same sentence. I don't care what's first, lies, allies, spies. I don't care. I'm not saying it. Never saying it again.
I take it you're not rewatching this season anytime soon.
I will only refer to it as season 37. I will never say Spies, Lies, and Allies after these review and recaps and Tiny Table Talks.
Fair enough. Chantal, what is happening on Reality Realness with 3S's as we head towards Christmas and the end of the year here? What do you have lined up on your channel?
Things are definitely cooling down again, which is interesting because I'm like, oh wait, I need to do something. So I'm probably going to fill up my schedule because like I have so much free time. I will definitely be going live earlier on Wednesday next week to do the finale recap of The Bachelorette with Tanya. I'm not sure when, because I told you that like my best friend made dinner plans. So I may or may not, depends on how that night goes, do the first part of the reunion. Other than if I don't, then I'll do it, double episode the following week. So we'll have to stay tuned about the challenge, Spies, Lies, and Allies, part 1 and 2 of the reunion. And we'll have to stay tuned. Obviously, be back with you guys at 5 p.m. Eastern and next Friday. And I'm debating, Drew, maybe you can tell me if I should do this or not, or maybe you'd want to do it with me. But Selling Tampa began this week. And so I've seen all of Selling Sunset, and I'm up to date on that. And Selling Tampa is about a Black, all-female real estate agency in Tampa, and I'm considering covering that. And so that is something that I'm thinking of doing between now and the new year. And then lastly, doing a cast reveal within the next couple of weeks for The Amazing Race. So that's all I got, I think, unless I'm forgetting like 10 things.
Yeah, it should be fun. Well, I'll let you guys talk about Selling Tampa at the end of this podcast and figure out if there's an opportunity there. It should be interesting. I should go watch Selling Sunset, but Drew does watch everything, so.
Tampa Bay, baby.
There we go.
Yeah, you might love Selling Tampa. You might be like, oh my God, like that's a landmark. That's a landmark. That's a landmark.
I feel like Drew's in. I feel like we can tell that he's already got the hat. He's ready
I'm
to do
also
the
considering doing Housewives of Miami that just started as well. I don't know. What's a mess?
You gotta watch out with Chantal, Drew. She's gonna drag you into all of these shows, mate. Like you'll end up doing like 5 or 6 podcasts a week with her. She is the podcast queen for a reason, just due to all of these content, all of these different episodes that you can continue to recap on and push out. I really take my hat off to you. It's a lot of hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, as we close it off here on Reality Pop, thanks, guys, for joining us here again. Like we said, we will be back next week. We've got one more episode dropping tomorrow. I believe it's going to be 8:30 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I need to double-check on the time for that. It's going to be the Survivor Superfan Roundtable. We're going to have a couple of superfans that have been watching the show join the Survivor Buffs. I will also jump on with the Survivor Buffs to talk about my thoughts on Survivor Season 41. Drop the 4, keep the kept one, I guess. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot unsaid that I will want to talk about when I catch up with you guys the week after that, because I'm just going to be a part of that roundtable, opposed to when I talk to you guys. It'll probably be a lot more free flowing. But check that out. It should be a lot of fun to get some fan opinions on the show as well. And then I will catch you guys next time. Thanks for being here in the live, and talk to you soon. Bye.